I will call to order the Ottawa City Commission meeting for Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor Clayton,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Crowley,
Present.
Commissioner Allen,
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore,
Present.
and Commissioner Van Layden.
Present. We are all present and accounted for. I want to welcome everyone here in the audience as well as those watching online. We're just starting the budget process this week, so it's an exciting week, and thank you all for being here. We will do the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Pastor Dakota Smith from Ottawa Bible Church. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Always honored to be able to share a brief word with you. Psalm 23 says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows." And the final verse, "Surely goodness and loving kindness will follow me all the days of my life." And he says so because of what the Lord did in the previous verses. "And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." In John 10, Jesus reveals himself as this good shepherd. And I really encourage everyone here today to look to him. He loves you. Thank you so much for your leadership. Let's pray. Father, we come before you right now, and we thank you that our ultimate need, the restoration of our soul, is ultimately found in you. Please grant us wisdom and love and patience and even security and rest in you today. Thank you for today's meeting. Please be Lord over it. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. That will take us to item 6, consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from the June 10th, 2026 regular meeting, May 2026 financial monthly reports, partner agency reports for May 2026 from Ottawa Library and Ottawa Main Street Association, and agenda approval.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm going to amend the agenda for today. I want to move our proclamations ahead of public comments, just in case those individuals need to get out of here before the public comments.
With that, do you motion with
Not
the
motion,
with
yeah.
the
Motion to approve the rest of it.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion with the amendment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, that'll take us to item 7, appointments, proclamations, recognitions, and nominations. 7A, United States Semiquincentennial Countdown Proclamation. Proclamation recognizing the upcoming 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence and encouraging citizens to commemorate the milestone in meaningful, local, and impactful ways. Representatives from the Daughters of the American Revolution will accept the proclamation, and it will be read by Commissioner Allen.
The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas on July 4th, 2026, our nation will commemorate the semiquincentennial anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And whereas the journey towards this historic milestone is an opportunity to reflect on our nation's past, honor the contributions of all Americans, and look ahead to the future generations who will carry forward the ideals of democracy and individual liberty that make the United States a unique nation. And whereas the great state of Kansas passed a bill creating the Kansas Commission for the United States Semiquincentennial with the purpose to plan, encourage, develop, and coordinate commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States, and to recognize the impact of this event on the people of Kansas and the nation's past, present, and future. And whereas the National Society of Daughters of the American Revolution, DAR, D-A-R, is a non-political women's service organization established in 1890, whose members are a lineal descendant from the patriots of the American Revolution, and the Kansas Society of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, KSDAR, has an appointed commission representative to the Kansas Commission for the United States Semiquincentennial, and KSDAR members are dedicated to promoting historic preservation, education, and patriotism. And whereas KSDAR encourages the City of Ottawa to begin planning the commemoration of our nation's rich history and diversity by completing projects in unique, local, and impactful ways. And whereas from the 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party in 2023 until the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 2033, our nation's rich history and diversity of experience is an opportunity to honor all men and women who have achieved American independence. These patriots, believing in the noble cause of liberty, fought valiantly to establish a new nation. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this memorable anniversary, therefore be it resolved, the Ottawa City Commission formally proclaims June 17th, 2026 as the countdown to the United States Semiquincentennial in the city of Ottawa, Kansas, and urges all citizens to reflect on the privilege of being an American with all of the rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves, and to celebrate the commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States by completing projects in unique, local, and impactful ways. Signed this 17th day of June 2026 by our Mayor, Zach Clayton.
You. I'm sure they'll want a photo real fast, and then if you guys want to talk. Oh, go ahead.
Mayor Clayton and City Commissioners, on behalf of the General Edward Hand Chapter National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, thank you for this proclamation recognizing the 250th anniversary of American independence. As we begin the celebration of America's semi-quincentennial, we remember the courage, sacrifice, and vision of those who declared that all are created equal and established a nation founded on liberty and self-government. We are honored to accept this proclamation and grateful to the City of Ottawa for joining in commemorating this historic milestone. May the next year of celebration inspire us to learn from our past, cherish our freedoms, and renew our commitment to the ideals that have guided our nation for 250 years. And I sent an invitation to the 4th of July celebration to each of you. I hope that you got it. And everyone is invited to our 4th of July celebration here at the courthouse. On the courthouse steps, we'll be reading the Declaration of Independence and having a celebration. So we're excited about that and all the things that Ottawa is doing to celebrate this 250th anniversary. Thank you.
And that's 10 a.m. on the 4th of July, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Does anyone else want to take it? Thank you all, and be sure to set on your calendars July 4th, 10 a.m. at the courthouse steps. That'll take us to item 7B, Juneteenth Proclamation. Proclamation recognizing the effort to make Ottawa inclusive and honor the meaning of the holiday. Richard Jackson will accept the proclamation read by Commissioner Skidmore.
The proclamation reads this way: whereas Juneteenth is the longest running African American holiday, and whereas it recognizes June 19th, 1865 as the date the news of slavery's end reached enslaved people in Galveston, Texas. Whereas the Emancipation Proclamation that freed the enslaved people living in the Confederacy took effect January 1, 1863, and was the ratification of the 13th Amendment. And whereas the Juneteenth began primarily with church celebrations in 1866 and spread through the black communities, particularly in the South. And whereas between 1854 and 1861, people living in Kansas could decide if the state would allow slavery or the principle known as popular sovereignty. And whereas Kansas became known as Bleeding Kansas because of the violence carried out by both sides, anti-slavery and pro-slavery supporters. And whereas Kansas had a reputation as a land of freedom and attracted a diverse group of people, not everyone enjoyed the same benefits. And whereas Kansas did not have any Jim Crow laws early in Kansas history, as time passed, though, segregation became more common. And whereas the federal landmark ruling, Brown versus Topeka Board of Education in 1954, allowed states to operate separate but equal schools. And whereas in 1881, Tenon versus Ottawa was a prelude to Brown's similar ruling, only regarding schools in Franklin County. And whereas the Ottawa swimming pool was segregated well into the 1960s, and Ottawa has dealt with this residue of segregation. And whereas Ottawa has worked to make this an inclusive community, let's use this Juneteenth holiday as an opportunity to honor the true meaning of the holiday and what it represents, and continue to work toward the promise of equality for all. Therefore, the governing body of the City of Ottawa, Kansas, does hereby proclaim June 19th, 2026 to be recognized as Juneteenth by the City of Ottawa, Kansas, signed this 17th day of June by our Mayor, Zach Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Commissioners. I think the proclamation speaks for itself. I think it includes pretty much everything that you need to know about Black history, about Juneteenth. I'll add a little bit more. You know, I often get questions on why do we have another Black holiday? I won't tell you what my response is. Everybody has a holiday. If we think about the history of this country, we just got through recognizing 250 this year anniversary of this country. Sometimes we forget that all of our ancestors came over on a boat. And while everybody's holiday might not be a national holiday, it could be a state holiday, it could be a city holidays, as you do here, recommending a number of different groups and people that have contributed to the building of this country, to the building of this community. Donald Anderson, or should I say Dr. Anderson, was not able to be here. He'd been off on leave, and I guess one of the important ones is maternity leave. He has a 7-week-old baby boy, so we can understand. But in talking to Donald, I said, you know, if we could come up with three things to spell out the importance of Juneteenth, what would they be? And these are three he came up with. It celebrates freedom. Juneteenth marks the end of slavery for the last enslaved Americans and recognizes the value of liberty for all, and we emphasize liberty for all. 2, acknowledges our history, understanding and remembering important movements in America's history, helps us learn, grow, and move forward together. And I think sometimes we forget this, that we need to come together as a community, we need to come together as a country. Number 3, it highlights progress and resilience. Juneteenth honors the preservation of those who endured injustice and progress, and the progress our nation has made toward greater equality. So I think that's something well to do. You know, the other thing I would add, Juneteenth, ex-president, President Barack Obama's library opens officially in Chicago on June 19th. I think some celebrations start today. Again, my thanks.
Thank you, Richard. That will take us to item 8, public comments.
We have 7 registered. We'll start with Susan Hughes.
Hi, my name is Susan Hughes. I live at 1201 South Ash. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm sure you are just as sick of hearing about data centers as I am. But I really like turning on my tap and having clear, drinkable water come out of it. I think that's the biggest issue with this. I know this is not limited to just our area. I was speaking with a gentleman from Texas the other day, and I told him about that our light field wants to use 5 million gallons of water a day, and nobody seems to be concerned. He said, well, they should talk to the people of Corpus Christi. A lot of cities all over our country do not have adequate water supplies now because of the excess of these sitters. And why are they hitting us so hard in the Midwest? Land is cheaper. Our leaders are not as skeptical of these predatory companies that just want to come in, drain off our avenues, our water, our pure air, our clean ground, the effect on our animals. They don't care about those things. They're just predatory. So, and this fact that we have all these non-disclosure agreements, if you can't say something out in the open before all the people that are going to be affected, then there's a problem right there. If it's got to be in secret, it's not a good idea. 71% of the population are against these, but over and over, the city commissioners are voting for it just because of the money they're getting. So don't look at the money, look at the total effect of our water, of the effect on our land, on our health, on our livestock, on our wildlife. It's a big subject, I know it is, but we've got to persevere and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Ramona Martin.
Hi, I'm Ramona Martin, and I live at 1627 Osage Drive, and my biggest concern.
Sorry, Ramona, can you pull that microphone down just a little? Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so my biggest concern was the waterways, the sound that's supposed to be emitting from the data center, putting chemicals in our water systems. And like was previously stated, my concern is for the farmers, the folks that raise cattle, chickens, et cetera, and what it's going to do to them, and also our wildlife that's out there. And I just don't want anything detrimental for our community, let alone the gas usage and whatever else that goes along with that data center. I think it's so detrimental, and that's basically what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramona.
Next will be Tab White.
I'm Tab White, 1026 South C Street. The thing that bothers me the most is the lack of information. I have dug through many articles. I have listened to information filtered basically through my wife to me. And I simply don't understand the lack of communications. Simple lack of communications is probably one of the worst things that happens to any group of people. They can have misunderstandings, it builds distrust, and presently, I think that the city, our representatives, I consider myself part of the city because I live here. I love this city. We need to get more information out and make it clear about the logistics of all of this. If you don't have water, you don't have life. To me, potentially the amount of water that they're going to want to use. And I've picked up restrictions on generating your own electricity and how they're going to get their electricity. All of these things are really not transparent. They're not clear to the public. It really ought to be straightforward on the city website. The city's the seller. The city's the seller. That makes me one of them. And I don't know what the details are in the deal. And NDAs are wonderful, generally for one side or the other, unless they're structured properly. So right now, for me personally, the smell is much greater than the information that I'm able to get. Very uncomfortable with this. I think it has the potential to have some negative long-term repercussions if things aren't structured properly, if we're not able to leverage certain details. And I'm not sure if we're even prepared to deal with these giants that are coming in and needing these resources. We may be out of our league. And so I think we have a great commission. I think we have a great city. Every person that serves, I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I just simply want to make sure we're very careful on this one, because once you're in, you're not going to be out. And if they sell the place to a bigger company and a bigger company, I don't even know if the state of Kansas can stand up to all of the lawsuits and things that could occur. So we need to be very careful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tab.
Chris Mays.
I wanted to speak to some of the concerns that have been addressed more specifically. Like I looked up a case study, Chris Mays, 100 block South Locust. There was a study or a report I found of municipal wastewater reclamation facility in Quincy, Washington that was not prepared for TDS, which is total dissolved solid contaminants released from a data center. The initial permits did not require testing for this. The city began testing for it on its own. And this was 14 years prior to them installing a water reclamation plant. So for 14 years, it took them that long to fix the problem. And during that time, the testing by the city discovered that those TDSs were above the range that were supposed to be allowed. And then even when they discovered it, the Department of Ecology itself knowingly granted a grace period to be able to construct a treatment facility to combat this and process the blowdowns. So I wanted to present that as a case of, we think that there's these protections out there, but too often, we're above the measure we're supposed to be in pollutants, and then the regulations catch up to it after the fact. I would like to see you guys be educated on what protections can be put in place to enforce that before they get here. Because once they land, it's almost too late. And I was very encouraged to hear that Zach is signing up for a training in July from the 15th and the 16th by the Kansas Municipal Utilities Summit or whatever. I very much appreciate that. That's a positive. I want to see you guys learn about this stuff, know the questions to ask, not go in blind and trusting any one person or any one side. So thank you for pursuing that. We all collect toxins in our bodies throughout our lives, and I'm particularly concerned about our children. So if we bring in more pollutants, which I think this thing inevitably will, our children are going to be getting more pollutants throughout their lives, more diseases and death will occur. And an example of that was there's a Virginia Commonwealth University study that found that emissions from a data center generator in North Virginia had risen sharply. And these figures represented a small share of the total emissions allowed, not just what was happening, but they could allow more. But that the data center air quality permits, meaning the output can increase substantially and legally so, the pollutants. So during a period of grid stress, for instance, in January of 2026, there was an extreme cold front that came through and it caused record electricity demand. In response, the data centers requested federal approval to operate at all their diesel backup generators continuously to make up for the gap. So only adding to the pollutants. So there's an example of not only are these pollutants happening, they can happen more. And just to end on the thought of one analysis estimated that emissions from a single facility could cause between 53 and 99 million in annual health damages, including premature deaths and increased rates of lung and heart disease. And if they continued at the current level, it was estimated that between 17 and 33 premature deaths over 5 years would occur and 102 to 195 deaths over 30 years. So please consider this stuff. It's very meaningful and important.
Thank you, Chris.
Kendra Titus.
Hello, I'm Kendra Titus at 2961 Labette Road. I am in the county, not in the city, but what this vote or this decision will greatly affect me. I'm just a quarter of a mile from this data center. And this noise will be 10 times that, and a bass sound, throbbing, throbbing, throbbing. I've mentioned this before. This does affect animals. I'm on the Department of Ag in the state of Kansas. They're doing research and study on that. In Texas, it affects the production of all animals near and far from it. It also will affect people. The studies haven't been around long enough because the data centers haven't been there long enough. So do consider this. Also, this vibration, this sound affects hearts in the human. So if you are close to the proximity, 2.5 to 5 miles is what it says on the research, then this will affect you. And also, right before I was walking out to come today, the Lord led me over to my Bible and he asked me to read this to you. This is Acts 8:49 and 50. Heaven is my throne and the earth and my footstool. What house will you build for me, says the Lord? Or what is the place of my rest? Has my hand not made all these things? And what he's showing us in this is God created the heaven and the earth, and we are here to protect and to live and to prosper. We are not here to destroy our land. So we need to keep prospering for our children and for the future. Our 250th anniversary is coming up, and we want to see our 500th anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra.
Angie Malik.
Hi, I'm actually not here about the data centers, but I oppose it. I thought it was important to good morning. My name is Angie Malik and I reside at 1878 Jackson Road. As most of you know, I first came to public comment in 2022 about installing a safe haven baby box at Ottawa Fire Station 1. Then it was an agenda item in 2024. At that meeting, it was discussed that the commissioners were hesitant to be the first baby box in Kansas. That is no longer the case, as Salina, Hutchinson, Garden City, and last month Wichita approved their first baby box. Currently, in the state of Tennessee, lawmakers have introduced legislation to require a safe haven baby box to be installed in every county across the state. Today, Safe Haven Baby Boxes has over 450 locations across the United States, and they have had 79 babies surrendered, facilitated over 200 face-to-face surrenders, and their 24/7 crisis hotline never sleeps. Back in 2024, there were also concerns about the contract with Safe Haven Baby Boxes, and it has still not been negotiated with the founders, Monica and Joe Kelsey, which are open and ready for the negotiations. Ottawa still has $11,551 waiting to go toward the installation with Safe Haven Baby Boxes. And even though raising $11,551 in less than 4 months back in the end of 2023 should have been enough to see it as something that Ottawa citizens want, I launched a petition last Wednesday, and there is well over 200 of your constituents that have signed the petition, and it is climbing. It is past time to install a Safe Haven Baby Box in Ottawa, and I urge you to reconsider and ask that it be added as an agenda item as soon as possible. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Angie.
Robert Panett.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Robert Panay. I live at 1050 Haskell Terrace, and I've been a lifelong Franklin County resident. I'm here about the data center, surprise, surprise. I would like to request a public forum on the matter of the data center, mainly for clarity, certainty, and consistency. We need a public forum because this matter needs civil discourse. The way I understand it, the 1 cent sales tax, the money that Proximity Park was created with, is, in my mind, taxpayer dollars. And so we should have some say in what's going on here. The tax abatements will affect every one of us. I think, in my mind, 300 acres that they're supposed to get for this data center would be better served by some kind of business that's more consistent with what's going on around here. Lightfield Energy is building the data center to sell for profit. So I don't know if that's really something that's going to benefit all the citizens in Ottawa. But anyway, this is a nice area to live, and I hate to see it get ruined by too much growth. Incremental growth is good, but you know, if it grows too fast, we all know how things end up that way. Be lots more convenience stores and all that, I guess, but I don't know if we need that. But anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you all. That'll take us to item 9, declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Hearing none, we will skip item 10, unfinished business, as there is none. Item 11, new business. Item 11A, review of 2027 operating budget for utility funds. The proposed 2027 operating budgets for the electric, water, wastewater, and stormwater funds will be presented for discussion and consensus with Director Landis. And Director Sneeden.
We're going to change it up just a little bit today for you, and we're both going to present. But I wanted to just start with as a reminder, where we're at in our budget process. So we start relatively early in the year, and we started with our capital improvement program. We worked through all of those details and those draft projects that will eventually be taken. We'll have a discussion with the Planning Commission next week, and then eventually there'll be a public hearing on the CIP. And then we brought to you some of our special revenue funds about a month ago, and now we're working through our utility funds. We did receive our valuation notice last night. We'll be bringing to you in the next few weeks, start working through our mill levy funds as well. By July 20th, we have to send our notice to the county determining whether or not we'll exceed the revenue neutral rate. And then they will issue statements to everyone within every taxing jurisdiction, notifying them of your public hearing dates and the information that we provide to them for our estimated mill rate. And then we will adopt our final budget on September 3rd, I believe, is that at that evening meeting. So with that, I'm actually going to let our utility director start us off with an overview of our electric funds or our utility funds and high-level review of all the projects, and then we'll maybe talk a little bit about the financial piece that formulates the budget that support each one of the utilities. The 4 utilities for today are stormwater, water, wastewater, and electric.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. Hope you're settling in for a long. Melanie told me I had like 45 minutes to talk. So my notes cover 45 minutes, and I'll try not to go over. I'm just kidding, of course. Now, to keep on schedule, I am going to maybe. There we go. I want to remind you guys that everything that we do in our budget process comes back to a document that we've seen over and over and over again for a year and a half now. It's our strategic outline. Talks about our economic development, quality of life, infrastructure, stewardship of resources, safety and education, housing and neighborhoods. The utility department's budget is built around the same strategic priorities adopted by you guys with that document. Every major project included in this 2027 budget, proposed budget, supports one or more of these priorities. Whether it's infrastructure, stewardship, economic development, neighborhood investment, public safety, or quality of life, this framework helps ensure our investments align with the community's long-term vision and goals. As you know, last year, we created a matrix, a priority matrix from the community's survey results. A lot of what you see within our budget is wrapped in from that. The 2027 utility budget focuses on 4 primary themes: reliability and resilience, infrastructure rehabilitation and asset management, and preparing for growth, and financial stewardship and sustainability. Alone in the reliability and resilience, we have over $945,000 slated in the proposed 2027 budget. Such projects such as generator 6 and 7 control upgrades, aerator rebuilds at our WRF, Zone 3 tree trimming, scraper gearbox replacement at the water treatment facility, and relay and breaker testing at the Northeast and Southeast substations, as well as the PAS study in cooperation with the Corps of Engineers. The second one is the infrastructure rehabilitation and assessment management, asset management. That's over $840,000 wrapped up into the 2027 budget, just alone for that theme. Major projects included the sewer pipe and manhole lining program, Cedar Street water line replacement program, continued asbestos removal at the power plant, and the water main replacement inventory expansion for our water distribution utility. That's an expansion because we have the capacity for in-house construction. We have a wonderful water distribution team, along with other utility folks, that could utilize more dollars to replace more water line in town. The next one is preparing for future growth. And I heard earlier about growth and trying to kind of slow things down. That's the lowest of the amounts of the themes that we have here at $282,000, which projects like the electric master plan kind of gives us a scope of where we're at electrically. Bypass, 68 bypass and conduit wire. That's the lighting going around near the ball fields and the water treatment facility and the power plant. 2nd Street substation reverse power flow. That's something that's been in the works. David Hunsacker and Rocky Evans are taking the point on that one. That's a way for us to maybe generate some more dollars in-house. And then finally, the AMI gatekeepers. We need to upgrade those. As you know, those gatekeepers have been installed since 2016. We need to update them with better technology. And then financial stewardship and long-term sustainability. That's the biggest that I see and probably the most important as a municipality. It's over $933,000 that's dedicated in 27 to this. Electric fund transfer to capital improvement fund, generator 6 and 7 reserve funding, and the wastewater collections truck are a part of those, as well as the street sweeper reserve, as we all know how much those are after we purchased one recently, and then debt service. So what this proposed 2027 budget gets us is improved reliability, reduced long-term cost, and readiness for future growth. The challenges we see aren't different for Ottawa or any other municipality right now. Aging infrastructure. You know, if you think about it, our newest treatment facility in the city is 22 years old, and that's our wastewater treatment facility. So think of that, 22 years old, and we're at that time now to where we're having to start upgrading and replacing things. That's not even to take into consideration the 1980 building and the 1950-some building. Rising cost. Every one of us deal with rising costs. We know that's a challenge. Limited capital funding. Like I spoke on before, we've got the resources here in town. We've got the staff to do it. It's just finding that capital investment in order to do those projects in a timely manner. The projects and priorities we've discussed establish the strategic direction for the 2027 proposed budget. With that foundation in place, Melanie will now walk through the financial details behind the proposed budgets, including revenues, expenditures, fund balances, and long-term financial outlooks for each utility fund. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully, this gives you a little bit different perspective on the utilities as a whole. A lot of times when we talk about budget, we're talking about each individual utility and we're talking about their fund balances and what impacts them directly. But your utility department is really working on all of these things simultaneously across limited crews, and they're getting a lot done and accomplished. And as Scott said, one of the major pieces to this is deciding how we can fund those things appropriately and in a timely manner to get them done when needed. So the very first fund that we're reviewing is the Stormwater Fund. This one is our current rate structure was established in 2012. We haven't changed those rates since then. The way that we calculate those stormwater rates is included in the memo and the documents in the packet for you. But the whole utility purpose is stormwater management, water quality improvement, and then flood control, of course. We've had conversations about the stormwater utility in the last couple of years. We've talked to you about the purpose for the past study that needs to be done, that we are engaging that first phase of that past study, essentially allowing us to determine what improvements are needed to continue that water flow out to the river. That we were really fortunate to get the first half of that covered under a federal earmark this year. So the second half of that is included in our budget in 28, I believe. And then I think this one is roughly $350,000 this first half. So those were some significant hits to our fund balance that we would have had to endure immediately. And so we're lucky to have those earmarks. Once we have that study back and we know kind of what we're looking at needing to improve, we'll bring all of those other capital projects back into light. So I believe in the CIP for the Stormwater Fund, there are a couple of designs in there for, I believe it's Skunk Run, and there's another street in there that I'm sure it's right here. And our Director Walsh is not here today. He would be able to explain these way better than I could. Sorry. Okay. I don't have it off the top of my head. But those designs will allow us to be able to move ahead with those capital projects sooner than later once we get that past study back and we can start moving in the direction of getting some of those capital projects done. Right now, if you look at our ending fund balance, you can see that it's relatively stable. The gray line is the ending fund balance. And that's largely because the long listing of those stormwater projects just aren't in here yet. And because we're still kind of on hold until we get those results back. So as far as budgeting for this fund goes, it's pretty standard. There isn't anything in here that really jumps out at us as being a high need for consideration. There are some outstanding debt issuances for stormwater. These include the improvements along Ash Street and from Cedar to Oak, along Cedar and Oak from 13th to 15th. Those pay off by 2038. Our water utility fund, we recently covered with you in a study session an outside utility rate study where we had them take a look at our water utility fund, specifically determining whether it would be advantageous to move to a new rate structure. I will tell you in preparing this, we kept our current rate structure in place for the purpose of presenting this to you because no decisions have been made about that change. during that presentation, we talked about the idea of moving from from a declining rate structure to a volumetric rate. And when we went back and we looked at the impact to some of our higher residential users, determined that that would probably need a step-in process over time to make that feasible for some of those higher end residential users for sure. And so we have gone back to that consultant and asked for some steps to be able to put that into place a little more slowly than just making a decision and moving directly into that new rate structure. So we'll bring some of that discussion back to you at a later date. For right now, as far as projecting the budget for 27 and 28, though, we used our standard rate increase right now under resolution is in place through 2027. By recommendation from that consulting firm, continuing, should we stay at this rate structure, continuing that 4.4% increase year over year. Small incremental increases tend to help you offset those increasing costs that you have, as opposed to waiting several years and then impacting your customers with a really large rate increase. So if you look at just your total revenue here, we really aren't bringing in a lot of revenue every year, but your expenses tend to outweigh that increased revenue. So in any year where you see there's more expenditures than there might be revenue, then that's when you'll start to see an impact on your fund balance. One of the challenges that we've had in our water fund is being able to do as much of the maintenance to water mains that we need to all at one time. And we actually this last year, because of the increased pressure through those water mains, ended up having to replace more mains than we had planned on this year. And we were able to do that because we have a reserve in this fund balance. But if you look at the bottom line, our fund balance is relatively low for a utility fund. It is under $1 million. However, these are projected expenditures, and our utility crews do a really good job of making sure that we're spending the least amount possible and able to get the most number of projects done that we can each year. So right now, our fund balance, our projected fund balance, is really stable or relatively equal with our minimum fund balance policy. We typically target a 20% of your expenditures. If we wanted to be able to do more projects sooner, we would need to look at being able to increase the amount of revenue that comes in. That either comes through a rate increase or it comes through more customers to your water utility. Those are the only two paths to get there. So as we see the need for more expenditures, those are the two things we'll have to talk about more in the terms of rate increases going forward. The capital improvement projects, this is what you've discussed earlier this year. This includes some of those main replacements. The reason why this doesn't show anything in your 2030 and 2031 columns is because we discussed where we'll have a 5-year plan going forward for water main replacements, or maybe even further than 5 years, attached to your CIP. And it'll basically come out of here. We consider those to be maintenance projects and not necessarily needed to be as a capital improvement. Those aren't new projects to our system. They're just replacing or maintaining the mains that already exist. Outstanding debt, we do have a couple of issuances here that we're still paying off. The longest one is 2039. That was constructing a raw water line and replacing the downtown water line in that issuance. Our proposed budget for the wastewater utility, this utility is focused on sanitation, water reclamation, and protecting public health. And our last rate resolution was put in place in 2023. Those rates are included in your memo. Under, if you were to just take a look at the summary, we really do have a fairly stable bottom line here. This was the second utility that we had our consultant review for you, and we discussed a couple of weeks ago. The recommendation here is to maintain the rate increase year over year that we have been experiencing for the wastewater utility. Even if we were to do that, we still have some challenges in our future, which is what you don't see on the budget highlights over to the right are two really large interceptor projects that need to occur, and those being roughly $8 million apiece. Those were included in the rate study, but not necessarily able to be covered. And so when we initially discussed it, even with a small rate increase year over year for the foreseeable future, it still would cause your fund balance to dip significantly once those debt payments would start taking place. So we do need to be a little more strategic about how we'll be able to do that. Certainly would never be able to do both of those at the same time. We may have to wait until a little bit of our debt falls off before we can start adding more debt to replace those payments and to be able to manage that under your existing fund. The fund balance here, you do see a slightly declining fund balance. Again, that includes the rate increase that was proposed or the one that's currently in place and then extending that. But as you saw more and more projects get added to those out years, we start adding the larger increase. We're proposing to pay for most of those with cash. As we do that, of course, your fund balance will start to decline. Those capital improvement projects that are included here, the 27 and 28, I might just make a note here that we have actually removed those from your budget because those caused that fund balance to decline more rapidly. If we were able to find some grant funding to help offset some of the projects that are already slated for the wastewater fund over the next couple of years, we likely would add those back in. A couple of those we are looking for grant funding. So at some point, they may be become more viable projects. Right now, they're in your CIP to make sure that we know that those are on our radar, that we're working towards including those, but we are not including them in the fund or in the wastewater fund budget right now as a cash spend because it would dip the ending fund balance a little too low for our comfort level just over the next couple of years. So again, we're out looking for grant funding to be able to do some of those projects. That's outstanding debt that is in the wastewater utility. The payoff for the East Side Interceptor is 2034. So again, talking about future interceptor projects, how can we manage the build out of those, maybe with some temporary financing, align the long-term payments to begin after the current debt payments are off of the books, then that would be helpful in the long run for your fund balance. The electric utility is one of our larger utilities. As far as expense and revenue goes, this does encompass electric production, making sure that we have reliable service and our utility sustainability. There are several divisions within your electric utility that make up this entire budget. We're not going to talk about each one of them necessarily, but all of the detail for each one of those divisions was included in the packet materials for you. Just overall, you do see that this, you see your bottom line does tend to start to decline for 2028, and that's because we do have a lot of major projects included in here. But some of the most important that you heard Director Sneathen talk about was tree trimming. We had started that I'll call it a project, but really it's a long-term maintenance plan that began a couple of years ago where we are removing tree limbs away from the power line so that we can help to reduce those outages as much as we can. We're, I believe, on zone 3 coming up, and zone 4, we're under contract for both of those. Those are not held up by the desire to continue that tree trimming program, but more along the lines of making sure we have budgeted funds available to continue tree trimming every year and then going forward beyond that. And then again, some of the bigger projects that he talked about, there's the replacement of some of the lights on the K68 bridge, along with all of the projects that are found within the CIP. You can see that gray line there is your fund balance by 2031. We do show that it starts to dip slightly. The reason for that is because we do have a current rate resolution that goes through 2027. And after that, we've projected that those revenues will remain relatively flat. As you can imagine, as your expenses increase and your revenues remain flat, your fund balance will start to decline. So we do need to do some more planning for what that might look like in the future and what those revenues need to be and what the timing of those projects will require consideration for how those rates are considered. In the CIP, for the electric utility, we have a lot of several traffic light replacement, engineering for future traffic light replacement, the river crossing project, which you've heard about for a couple of years now, in our system conversion. Those are the largest projects that are out there at this time that we are working towards making sure that we have funding available. They're important projects, and they will certainly underline the reliability component of our budget planning. The outstanding debt currently, we have two issues paying off in 27 and 28. So beyond those years, we don't have any more large debt for the electric fund that exists. We do have an existing lease purchase through 2032, but at that time, some of those larger projects, as we move towards the system conversion project, or some of those projects that are several million dollars, we need to consider whether or not those will be financed in order to get those started sooner rather than later. With that, that was really what we wanted to bring to you, is how those budgets were put together and presented to you in the materials. If you have questions about the utilities, we're happy to answer anything that you have.
One quick question I would have for Scott is, you talked about on the increasing rate structure, if we would go that way with water usage. Just thinking about that, kind of checking it on the AMI meters, the dashboard for public, just thinking if we were to look at that rate increase, if people had a place that they could go and see their water usage, potentially set up alerts, do we know rough time frame for having kind of that dashboard for folks? Are we a couple of years, getting close? Do we?
Yeah, that's kind of a sticky question. The water side is different, obviously, than the electric side. The electric side, hopefully by the end of this year, will be fully out on the residential side. The water side, we're currently about halfway deployed. Putting a dashboard up when we're halfway deployed is difficult. The electric side is one piece of it, and we've talked to our provider to figure out what those costs would be, because it would increase substantially for us as a utility to add that portion to our city website. The water side, on the other hand, we started this project in 2016 with the water meters and the electric meters. And we're finding those first gen AMI meters are struggling. So instead of growing, we have to keep going back and replacing that technology. So I would love to give you an answer, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but honestly, I do not know when we are going to be able to do that, because we want our systems working 100%, whether that's the reading rate, because the last thing you want is a customer going in and looking at it and seeing that they didn't use electricity or water and it's 2 days behind, or, something along those lines. So we just want to get everything lined up, get all of our ducks in a row before we put that dashboard out there.
That makes sense. Thank you.
I just had a couple questions too. The gray line concerns me. I'm glad it concerns you too. I see that, and I'm thinking about like Social Security at the national level. They've been talking about by 2031 or two, it's going to be going the wrong way. But it's good to address it today rather than tomorrow, and I appreciate that you're looking at that gray line. So that's one thing for sure. I see our delinquency rate. It still amazes me that we've got that much on the utility side, the delinquency rate. But we just enacted or hired someone to do some collecting. Have we seen any progress on that, or is that yet not to be started?
I'm really glad you asked that question. We did make sure that we had those rates in there and the amounts that we have uncollectible at this point. We have not yet engaged with a company to do collections on our behalf. We do still use the state set-off program, and we do see some success with that. And especially as, in past years, 10 years or more ago, you would have seen where people weren't receiving as much of a return from the state level. So when they file their taxes, the state will recoup some of our certified amounts to them through those taxpayers. So when you would certify your taxes to the state, your employment taxes to the state, then they would take what of those refunds would be and send them back to whoever was on the list for set off, basically, for debts that they had with those. We have seen a lot more success with that over the past couple of years, but not nearly as much. We haven't made as much headway as we would hope. So So getting a collection agent to work on our behalf would be really beneficial. As you can imagine, it's not an easy job or a friendly job for someone from your city staff to call on old debts with the city for your utilities. And we do our part to make sure that if someone were to come back in after maybe they've moved away and they came back to town, or maybe they moved from one residence to another, and there's an amount due, we make sure that we try to collect what we can before we'll set up a new utility account. And so we try to do as much as we can actually in the office. We will be moving towards making a recommendation to you to bring in an outside company. It used to be that there were just a small handful of companies that would do collections for utilities, and now there seem to be many more options available. So we'll, again, I don't know exactly when that'll come to you, hopefully yet this year.
Get that going. And I'm curious on if people filed bankruptcy, we have a record of that, so we're not trying to collect on those people, or is that?
We're notified whenever someone files bankruptcy, and we handle that the way it should be.
It's not a good idea to collect someone that filed bankruptcy, and it's a very uncomfortable apology from my experience. And so I think that's good that you're watching that. Second thing, too, you mentioned a raw water line, another one. We've got the second one in already, but was there a third one planned? Or I thought I saw something about a raw water line in the future plan.
In the future plan? I think that was under the outstanding debt. That's the one that we're currently paying for.
Okay, maybe that's what I was reading through this. Couldn't read quick enough. Okay. And then I think I had another question here, but no, I think that's it there. So great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? You'll see this in a more summarized format when we bring it back to you for the public hearing and final adoption of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Scott, and all your staff for their work getting all that together. That'll take us to item 12, comments by our city manager.
Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, operational highlights, crews responded to storm-related impacts across the community, included damaged electrical services, downed conductors, equipment failures, and debris removal. Installed new heating and air in the northeast substation control room. Replaced bricks on 4th Street after water main repair. Installed mixer in the basin number 2. Operational highlights for Public Works, hauled 127 loads of storm debris and completed sign replacements following severe weather. Replaced fountain pumps at Haley Park. I have a few pictures of broken stormwater pipe replacement on South Poplar Street. Storm cleanup there after Monday night's high winds. Golf course, Midwest Junior Tour. We're going to welcome 35 junior golfers from Kansas and Missouri, including 4 golfers from Ottawa, to develop their skills and represent the future of the game. That'll be, or was on June 11th last week, so good turnout for that. Upcoming events, Chamber After Hours tonight at the Ottawa Golf Course from 5 to 6 p.m. Friday, June 19th, Ballet Wichita presents Alice in Wonderland. That's at the auditorium at 7 p.m. Saturday, June 20th, Instamatics at the auditorium at 7 p.m. And then Tuesday, June 23rd, will be the city band performance at the auditorium at 7:30 p.m. We have Ottawa Fire Department fishing flyer over there. Urge folks to get registered for that. That'll be Saturday, August 1st from 9 to noon. Petals and Pastries, that's June 27th from 8 to 11:30 a.m. at Legacy Square. Tailgate to the Cup on June 27th at Legacy Square. Tentative items for the study session next week will be street plan and quality of life sales tax planning. That's all I had. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. One question, and you may not know the answer. We had a light pole fall in the 200 block in front of Turner Flowers. I know we have a cone over it now. Do we have replacement ones for those? I know obviously they've aged and a lot of them need replaced. Or are we just covering that guy? Sorry, Ed's laughing.
Thank you for saying that a lot of them need replaced,
Yeah.
because they do, which is part of our downtown master plan thought process. At the current time, we are trying to manufacture a plate to place over that specific pole. I don't know if we have any extra on hand. I know at one time they're very old.
Yeah.
I've got a bolt sitting on my desk right now that is crumbled. And that's probably what we see along every single one of them. And the concrete underneath that supports that will have to be redone and new plate put in.
Thank you. And kind of along that line, now that we've had one fall, we've been talking about looking at a plan. Do we have a rough inventory on ones that are potentially maybe more susceptible that we may almost need to, even if we're not to the point of ready to replace them, almost pull out? Or, I know they've been going down here for several years, and we are working in the next few years at looking at replacements and those types of things. But, once one falls, now we're kind of at that point that it's like, will we have more of these happen?
Edger's guy with some specifics.
Well, the best answer I can give you is all of them. And because the actual bolt is gone, the concrete's gone. It was two of them was still brand new, as good as could be for that age. But the winds, you just never know which direction, which bolts are rotted off, and you can't really tell without pulling the whole light picture out and checking it. But one of them is that way. They're all that way. I mean, they get the same amount of water, or same age that they've been put in, same bolts and everything. So.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yep. Just a question about the pool update. Any updates on the pool and how's it working out? And it's clean water?
It's always been
It's
clean
always
water.
been clean. It's just a little sandy, just kind of like the beach.
Yeah, there was some sand in the bottom of it when we drained it and cleaned it out and found that there was a valving situation on the filtration system. Everything is fixed. The water is crystal clear. It's beautiful. The kids are loving it. Again, it is packed. Water aerobics it's phenomenal. The parking lot I drove by the other day was full. And so we're doing good things over there. ORC's done a really good job of maintaining it. I know Morgan does a fantastic job over there. And Phil does a good job of keeping things under control for the ORC side.
See, no other questions. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. That'll take us to item 13, comments by governing body. We'll start with Commissioner Skidmore.
I just want to start out with our condolences to the Jen Sharp family. Some of us up here served with her on the airport board, I know, years past, and just what a dynamic young lady this was. And she just really was an aviator and a jumper all in one. And so it'll be a real big loss to our entire community. So my prayers and condolences to the Jen Sharp family.
Thank you. Commissioner Allen,
I have no comment.
Commissioner Van Leeten,
I have no comment.
Mayor Pro Tem Crowley.
I have no comments.
Okay, I just want to say thank you to the city crews, the banners for the World Cup, and then 4th of July for the Semiquincentennial. We have some up in here, but they look awesome. I've had several people mention how cool it is driving down the road and seeing those guys up everywhere. So thank you to your crews who are out doing that. Did just want to plug, I know it was in the city manager's comments, but the 27th, there's the Pedals to Pastries. So there's a tot ride in the morning. There's free bike repairs. There's some training sessions for if you have young riders. There'll be some helmets and safety things like that. If you have a bike that is not working for your kid or something, bring that down. And Jeff with Ottawa Bike and Trail is actually doing a free clinic to repair some of those bikes. Then that afternoon is Tailgate to the Cup with some yard games, some fun activities, and watching a game at 4 o'clock. And then July 4th was already mentioned, 10 a.m. on the courthouse steps for the Daughters of the American Revolution. That will take us to item 14, announcements. June 24th, study session here at City Hall at 4 p.m. July 1st, 2026, commission meeting at 7 p.m. here at City Hall. July 8th, 2026, commission meeting here at 4 p.m. at City Hall.
Mr. Mayor, I move the commission recess into executive session to engage in privileged and confidential communication with the board's attorney pursuant to attorney-client privilege exception, KSA 754319B2. The opening meeting will resume in this room. We're going to go 40 minutes. We'll start at 11:15, so we'll resume it here at 11:55.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We're in
Make a motion, come out of executive session.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are out of executive session. We are adjourned.
Plan, they were sitting here earlier.